Krishna Vistaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachaline Nivasisha Sunyavari Pashtatara Satarine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sari Gaura Bhaktivinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Okay, Mother Sahachari, can I make you a co-host again?
Yeah, sure,
So,
Muralidhar.
yeah, let me participants, Mother Sahachari, more, make co-host. Okay, you've been empowered. You're a co-host. Okay, so you can give the class and I can let people in. No, I've done some prep, so I better I've done some prep. Okay, so let's share a view. Now I want to share something else, advanced portion of screen. Okay, there you go. All right. So we have 11 devotees tuned in so far, Hare Krishna. So I'll leave it to Mother Sahachari to let devotees in the door. Tell them to put their shoes, leave their shoes outside the door, and they can come in. Okay. Hare Krishna. All right. So here we go, session number 3. And I thought I'd do a little synopsis so far, and I think we'll do this each week. We'll do a summary of what we have covered. So each week we do this little quick summary. The list will be getting bigger because I'm sure. I mean, I find it's good because as you read a book or as you study a Pacific Sastra, then the points that you first studied, you tend to forget. So it's good to be reminded of what we have studied because it helps to build a better picture of where we're going, so to speak. So we'll be doing this each week. I just give a quick summary, like here in one sentence, of what we've covered. I mean, the first week, half of it was dedicated to why fors and wheres and logistics, etc., and what we're doing and why we're doing it. That took half an hour. So we've had an hour and a half so far. We had some nice discussion. So this is what we have discussed so far. First was the significance of Srila Prabhupada's calling his society the International Society of Krishna Consciousness. And we we got into the history of that. There is a history, interesting history, which includes one Allen Ginsberg, who suggested to Prabhupada should name his society the International Society for God Consciousness. Yeah. So then we concluded Prabhupada was being very specific about Krishna consciousness, and then we got into a little discussion on what Prabhupada actually means by Krishna consciousness. And we quickly went right up to the highest spiritual perfection called Raganuga Bhakti, which is the spontaneous devotion of the residents of Vrindavan. We had some discussion on that. We gave something that was devotees always curious often about the term Raganuga Bhakti. So we had a little bit of discussion on that, but that's our goal. That's what Krishna consciousness means ultimately. That's what we want to obtain. Yeah, that which is in the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Yeah. And please, anyone, again, if you have any comments or questions as we're going through, please feel free to unmute and ask away or put up your golden hand or put in a chat. Yeah. So then we discussed the importance of understanding Shambhanda Gyan, which compromises 4 subjects. Hope you don't mind. Can I ask you a question? Anyone know what those 4 subjects are? What constitute Sambandha Gyan? Or one?
Hare Krishna, Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna. Please, yeah, Anuradha Mother. Is that
So,
you? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
so the four principles that we had seen is the Supreme Lord, the living entities, the material world, and their interrelationships between all these three.
Great, perfect. It's as if you was reading directly from my notes. Well done. Yeah, and just while I think of it, some of you have got the copy of Suddha Bhakti Cintamani. You might have it there with you. And you'll notice that this study is a kind of summary study of that book, although I've covered more or less, I think, 80% of the points. But some points you might be reading and I might not cover. So if you have questions about that, then please feel free to ask, and then I will, and then we can discuss that. So you might see if you have the book that I might not be paraphrasing every chapter or every verse. Yeah. Okay. Just as a side note. Yeah. So well done. That was the six subjects of Sambandha Gyan. And where do we get that from? We get that from studying Srila Prabhupada's books. Yeah. And we mentioned that it's essential for us to progress in spiritual life. And we brought up this slide here. Yeah. Otherwise, if we're not firmly grounded in the basic understanding of these principles of Sambandha Gyan, we may meet with setbacks or even downfall, Maharaj mentions, and that will become, and why that is so will become more apparent as we study, okay? And then we looked at, yeah, reading and studying Srila Prabhupada's books. Remember, we gave the example from the Nectar of Devotion of superficial reading, which may be misunderstood. Anyone can remember that? That example we gave, or someone may read and then conclude. Going once, going twice, going three times. Hare Krishna. So that was, we read a part from the Nectar of Devotion in the beginning, where Srila Prabhupada does give a definition, of which there is more, of the term Raganuga Bhakti. And he just said, if one is thinking of how to dress the deities, or one is thinking of, or one likes to go to Mangaladi, then that is called Raganuga Bhakti. All right. Prabhupada gave a very simple definition there. So a superficial reading we might make the miscalculation, because I'm sure most of us like to go to Mangaladi, isn't it? If we ever get the opportunity. Yes, I can hear everyone saying, yes, we love to go to Mangaladi if we get up on time. Yeah. But Prabhupada gives a more broader definition of Raganuga Bhakti. Okay, that comes later on in chapter 16. So Maharaj is emphasizing the importance of gaining knowledge, yeah, for us to advance in devotional service, to arm ourselves against setbacks in spiritual life. Yeah. And that's what we've discussed so far. Okay. So then flash through the slides. Yeah, also I have to be careful because every time I try to do a summary, then I end up spending an hour just on a summary. So I'm trying to hold back here. But I thought this is important to remember that although we're supposed to know Sambandha Gyan and study and read Srila Prabhupada's books, it doesn't necessarily mean we're all going to have to be scholars, but we do have to gain Sambandha Gyan. So it can come from reading, it can come from hearing, or it can come from chanting the holy name without the fence. Yeah. But the bottom line is that we need knowledge. Yeah. We need Divya Gyan. Yeah. So we describe that. We quoted Bhakti Siddhanta saying it's needed, and also Bhaktivinoda Thakur, like that. Okay. And then we're going to begin here today. So, all right, so basic definition of devotional service that's given. Later, Maharaj will describe it more, basing it on the verse from Nectar of Devotion, which I'm sure many devotees are familiar with, Anya Bilasata Sunyam. Okay, it'd be a more broader definition. But in the beginning, Maharaj, he quotes Jiva Goswami, And Jiva Goswami is quoting from the Puranas in order to substantiate the what's the word? To substantiate bhakti according to the original Vedas. So he's quoting from the Garuda Purana, yeah, in in his Sandarbhas of what's a definition of devotional service. So what it is basically put, I'm sure we all understand that it's service rendered to the Supreme Lord. Yeah, and we're going to be giving a marginal definition of pure devotional service, yeah, as well a primary definition which is called Sarup, and also a secondary definition which is called Tatashta. Okay, those two words will become more familiar as we go on. But I can read here for now, and then we'll get some other devotees reading. Now I shall describe devotional service to Lord Vishnu. By engaging in such service, one attains everything. Okay, that means everything spiritual, okay? Doesn't mean. Oh, actually, you can gain everything materially by the grace of Krishna, but that will be mixed devotional service. Okay, we'll describe that later. Yeah. So only devotional service and nothing else pleases Lord Hari. And actually, yesterday here in Potomac, in this beautiful temple in Washington, Radhanath Maharaj was here, and he was giving an initiations to I think over 50 devotees took first initiation and some second. And in his lecture, he was, as he often does, he was focusing on devotional service. Yeah, so it's devotional, so service done to devotion, and he was focusing on service to the Vaishnavas. Yeah, so devotional services is a basic definition given in the Puranas. Yeah, so Jiva Goswami gives this definition, and later we give a more of an elaborate definition given by Srila Rupa Goswami. Okay, and yeah, just also today, interestingly, we was in a supermarket, and one lady, elder lady, came to us, must be in her 70s. She was asking us, she was very curious because she's seen the temple grow, she's seen the community grow. She's never been in a temple here. But then she asked us, what does bhakti mean? So we was curious. So why are you asking what does bhakti mean? She says, well, when I was a young lady, I had a boyfriend and he named his dog Bhakti. And when went past your temple, I saw the word bhakti. So I was wondering what it meant because he saw ISKCON temple, the international site, founder Charya Bhakti Siddhanta. Oh, excuse me. Bhakti, yeah, Srila Prabhupada, yeah, Bhakti Vedanta, yeah. So, we had we were telling her what bhakti means. It means devotion. So, means devotional service. There's a basic definition. So, if we haven't got some service, it's good for us to get some service because that's how we can express our devotion. And as you know, devotional service, there's so many ways you can render devotional service, from making ghee wicks to distributing books to cleaning the toilets in the temple to buying some flowers from Tesco's and putting them on your altar. Yeah, there's so many ways. Yeah, and but perhaps the more important part of the discussion here today is this subject here. Okay. Again, any questions so far, any clarifications, please feel free to ask. Okay. And it's good if, and I can see some devotees have their camera on. It's good. If you can, it's good because I like to speak to people and I like to see expressions on people's faces when I'm speaking. Yeah. If they look angry, then I know I've got to change. I've got to, they're smiling or they're nodding their head. It helps. Okay. Okay, so how does devotion awaken? So this is spoken of in Suddha Bhakti Cintamani. How and why? Yeah. Now Maharaj brings up the point, as we know, that Krishna, he is completely independent. That's mentioned in the first verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Sarat. Yeah. Everyone else is dependent, but Krishna is the only one, as being the Supreme Lord, who is independent. Yeah. So as bhakti is part of Krishna's internal energy, yeah, it is also independent. So, in that sense, devotional service is independent. And you can read about this in the Nectar of Devotion as well, that it does not depend on knowledge or renunciation. Now, other paths, like Gyan, for example, they're often dependent upon stark renunciation. In other words, you can only become a sannyasi before you can take up that path. Or you, yeah, so it is, but bhakti itself is not dependent, on knowledge or renunciation. So, for example, I mean, for myself and others as well, you may have, I mean, I joined Krishna consciousness. I had no idea what it was about. Even though I had the Nectar of Devotion, I got it through the post before I joined. I couldn't understand it, but I like reading it. Sometimes I like reading things I can't understand. Yeah. So I came to the temple. I didn't know anything much. I was just impressed by the devotees. Yeah. I was captured by the Bhagavad Gita. I must say that. That's what brought me to the temple. But as far as a deep understanding of the philosophy, that was definitely something I didn't have. But I still went to the temple and I still could clean the stairs in the temple. I was doing devotional service. I didn't even know what the modes of material nature were. I never heard of the modes of material nature when I joined the temple. But I was still allowed to clean the stairs and, take part in devotional activities. So in that sense, devotional service is independent, just like Krishna. Now, this is also spoken of by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. There's a nice small book which is a favorite amongst devotees. Some of you might have read it. It's called the Madhurya Kadambini. And in that book, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives a summary of the different stages of bhakti. And he begins his essay, or he begins that book, by describing how bhakti manifests. And it's an interesting study. And this is what this section is based on. It's only a small book. It takes about an hour and a half to read it, but it takes perhaps a lifetime to understand it. A bit like nectar of instruction. All right. So you've heard these words, hoitaki aputi ato. So devotional service is pure devotional service, is unmotivated, and it's because it's unmotivated by anything material, it is uninterrupted. There is nothing, there isn't anything in the material world that can stop a pure devotee's devotion to Krishna. And actually, there's also one definition of prema, also given by Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur in one book called the Prema Samput, where he describes that obstacles feed pure devotion. Obstacles nourish devotion. They make the devotee's devotion stronger when they meet obstacles. So that's one definition of prema, actually. You know. But the point we're getting here, that the conclusion is that bhakti is fully independent, excuse me. Yeah. So it's more accurate to say that it manifests itself, to say that it is acquired. Now, it's a subtle difference, and hopefully this will become more clear. So it manifests itself is a better than saying it is acquired. Okay, that might be scratching your head. What does that mean? Okay, well, so in other words, bhakti is born from bhakti. Yeah. Okay, bhakti is born from bhakti, no other source. Again, but the question how, okay, how and why does bhakti manifest? And why does it manifest in some jivas and not in others? So we're going to discuss this. Yeah. Sometimes we get asked this. Persons come to the temple, normally from the Hindu background, and they say, "Yeah, you are destined to take up bhakti. I am not destined to take up bhakti. I cannot do bhakti. You are destined to take up bhakti." Yeah. So no, actually, any human being, if you have the human form of life, your duty is to take up bhakti. That's normally what I tell them, guests to, Hare Krishna. Everyone's following so far? Can I see some nodding heads? Okay. Some thumbs up? Okay. So how and why does bhakti manifest? So why does it manifest in some people and not in others? Yeah. So now the first question, I'm sure some of us know, Sastra states that devotion primarily, it can in other ways, but primarily it's going to manifest itself in a jiva by the mercy through the medium. So what comes next? Through the medium of a Chandravali. You can see I'm muting. You're muted.
Devotees, pure devotees.
Yep, pure devotees. That's it. We're, we we understand this. Yeah. So primarily it's manifest to the jiva through the medium of a pure devotee. Okay. And we have this verse here. Perhaps Mother Chandravali, you could read this verse if you unmute.
Unless one is favored by a pure devotee, one cannot attain the platform of devotional service. To say nothing of Krishna Bhakti, one cannot even be relieved from the bondage of material existence. See Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila 2251.
Yeah. Okay. So would we have taken up bhakti if it wasn't for Prabhupada coming to the West? Highly unlikely. Yeah. So it's by the grace of a devotee, that a jiva can actually take up bhakti. Ramana Sud, Hare Krishna. Welcome to
Haribol,
you.
a quick
Please.
inject. Um, Pure devotee can be defined in different ways. Now, when we talk about Prabhupada, yes, he's a pure devotee,
Yeah.
but a pure devotee doesn't necessarily have to be on Prabhupada's status. So define pure devotee.
Yeah. Now that we're going to, well, that we will discuss a bit more as we're going on today, and hopefully we will get there. But the definition of a pure devotee, let's just say for now, it's someone whose intention is ultimately pure. They want to obtain or they want to be free of all impediments to serving Krishna with pure devotion, even though they may be dealing with different attachments here and now. But their ultimate purpose is pure. So their intention is pure. So in that sense, Ramana Sut, you could perhaps comment on that. But actually, in that sense, that's why Prabhupada generously said that all these disciples are pure devotees.
Yeah,
Yeah, so pure in
the way I
intent.
take it, yeah, it's a liberal connotation where, yeah, all Prabhupada's disciples, Prabhupada said they're pure devotees. He used that as an
Yeah,
example once. But there's also the very conservative interpretation, pure devotee meaning the highest Uttama Adhikari
yeah,
level of devotion. So it covers a broad spectrum. So
yeah,
that's all. I mean, pure devotee in one sense, it's hard to make
yeah.
a
And
distinction.
yeah, thank you, Ramana Sudha. And we will be making, so this distinction we'll be making, that's part of what Sudha Bhakti Chintamani is about. It's making it crystal clear what is a pure devotee in the full sense of the term, as we have this verse. And Anyabilasada sunyam jnana kamada anabhritam. And as Maharaj discusses this, he spends a long time discussing what is impure devotion. And it can be quite sobering as we go through this study, because as he analyzes what is impure devotion, then we can recognize a lot of it. We we may well be able to recognize a lot of impurity within our hearts. Yeah. So that will become more clear. Thank you for bringing that out, Ramana Sutta Prabhu. That will become more clear. But just for now, yeah, let's just continue. So we're mentioning that bhakti comes from someone who has bhakti. Okay, so that means a devotee. So are there exceptions to this? Yes, there are exceptions. You might be thinking, what is that possible exception? Bhakti can only come from a devotee. I mean, it can come. There are exceptions to this rule. It can come by Krishna's direct mercy. Yeah, it can come. Krishna can award anyone any level of bhakti at any time, according to his own sweet will. Yeah, that's Krishna's complete independence. Yes, but generally, yeah, but that will be an exception. Generally, it's going to come through the devotees. And also mentioned here, it may come from the Vedic literature. Maharaj mentions here, also can give devotional service. And then this is from, it's not up on the slide, but I'm quoting now from the Narada Bhakta Sutra, which describes, just quote here, though primarily one attains devotional service of the great devotees, one may also attain it from a small particle of the mercy of the Supreme Lord Himself. And then further on, in this same Narada Bhakti Sutra, it describes that that the seed of devotion can be received from Sastra itself. And then Maharaj quotes this book, Renunciation Through Wisdom. Wonderful book. It's Prabhupada's early essays that he wrote, if I remember correctly, before he came over to the West. And then it is this wonderful book called Renunciation Through Wisdom. And in there, Srila Prabhupada says that it is available from the Bhagavad Gita as well, this seed. Now, in whichever way the beginners receive this seed, either from devotees or from Krishna, in exceptional case, or from Sastra, or from a company of devotees, it is necessarily the point Maharaj is making here to properly cultivate it, to properly cultivate that seed of pure devotion. Okay.
Yes, I
Now,
just wanted to ask
please, yeah, Chandravali Baba.
about acquired sukriti, devotees who have like souls who have acquired sukriti in their previous lives, and then they just
Yeah.
end up meeting the right person, and they can then start on.
Yep, that's coming up. I mean, devotees
that's
here, very learned devotees. I think we know where we're going with this. So that will be discussed. Yeah. So also, there may be this is there may be exceptional circumstances, say for example, where the mercy of devotees or the company of devotees is unavailable. Now, in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 10, Srila Prabhupada mentions that in that situation, Krishna may act as pure association from within. And he's mentioned in this in a purport to Te samsatata yuktanam pajatam pitipurvakam tadami buddhiyogam tam yena mam upadyanti te. All right, so anyone could tell us the translation for that well-known verse? Te samsatata yuktanam pajatam pitipurvakam Tadami buddhi hogam tam yena mam upadyanti te.
Can
I
you
say
the
I say
first?
the first two words and you'll get it. To those, I give you three words. To those who.
Um,
Ramana
constant,
Sutta knows, I can see him smiling. Go on, Madhvachandravali, have a guess. To
yes,
those who.
who are constantly
Yep.
meditating on me, I give them the understanding how to come to me, or something like that.
Yeah. To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with priti purvakam, with love. I give the understanding by which they can come to me. Yeah. And then he goes on to those to show them special mercy, I dwelling in their hearts, destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge, Jnana dipena bhasvataha, the darkness born of ignorance. Now, Prabhupada clarifies this in the purple, and he gives certain conditions by which, in exceptional circumstances, a devotee can get the Lord's direct guidance. So, too, Prabhupada mentions they must be very sincere in their effort to become Krishna conscious. Yeah, they really want to understand Krishna. Yeah, they're really sincere in that, and that's what's motivating them. And they must and also they must engage constantly in the Lord's loving service. So if they meet that criteria, and they may not have, for one reason or another, the opportunity to have the association of devotees, then Krishna is going to guide them. And I'm sure some of you, but I've met also persons, I'm sure you've heard these stories of someone who's got a book from Prabhupada and they've been practicing Krishna consciousness for like 5 or 10 years, and they've never met devotees. Some of you hear these stories where they make an altar at home and they're following, they're reading and they're following what's in the one book they have, but they've never met devotees. Yet they have got so many realizations, yeah, because they're sincere about that practice, they're inspired, and they're engaging from what they read in some type of devotional service. So, okay. Now, so the second question then, if you follow us, you can follow what here. Why does bhakti manifest itself? So therefore, it lies in the compassionate nature of devotional service, or the compassionate nature of devotion. Yeah. And again, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in his Madhurya Kadambini, he explains this point. So his conclusion is that bhakti in the hearts of certain devotees impels them to give bhakti to others. So what does it mean, certain devotees? Okay, now we'll discuss that. So, but first, self-devotion or devotion is self-manifesting. So it's Bhakti Devi impels pure devotees to share devotion by invoking their compassion for conditioned souls. Yeah. Can anyone think of an example? I have the next slide here is an example of someone who illustrates this wonderfully. Someone in the Srimad Bhagavatam who had such compassion that he wasn't concerned about his own liberation. He wasn't.
Maharaj.
Prahlad Maharaj.
Prahlad Maharaj, yes. Hare Krishna, thank you. Who said that? Prahlad Maharaj?
Oh.
Yeah, thank you. Anuradha Maharaj. Yes, Prahlad Maharaj. And there's this wonderful verse. I don't have the verse up. I have this nice picture here. It's a wonderful picture, one of my favorite pictures of Prahlad Maharaj. This is Prahlad teaching his schoolmates. And this one verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam 7.9.44. Prayena devasa vimuktikamon monam chiranti paraata nishtam. Yeah. Prahlad Maharaj says, my dear Lord Nrsingadev, I see there are many saintly persons indeed, but they are interested only in their own deliverance, not caring for the big cities and towns. They go to the Himalayas or the forest to meditate with vows of silence, Mauna Vrata. They are not interested in delivering others. As for me, however, I do not wish to be liberated alone, leaving aside these poor fools and rascals. I know that without Krishna consciousness, without taking shelter of your lotus feet, one cannot be happy. Therefore, I wish to bring them back to the shelter of your lotus feet. So this is a very nice verse by Prahlad Maharaj, um, especially living in central London. I made it a point to learn this verse. Okay, so this is the compassionate, again back here, this is the compassionate, the compassion or the self-manifesting from Bhakti Dev impures or impels pure devotees to share devotion. Yeah, and one such example is Prahlad Maharaj. Yeah. Now, so then this question comes up. Why do devotees give devotion to some jivas and not to others? Yeah. So this again, so devotees are, they are the central figure or the central point in bestowing devotional service. So rather than saying, why does devotion manifest itself in some jivas and not others? The better question is, why do devotees give devotion to some jivas and not to others? Okay, so we've established clearly that it comes from the devotees, except in exceptional circumstances. So then you could ask another question. Why do devotees give devotion to some jivas and not others? So in the first sense, it kind of relates to the discrimination of preachers who distribute devotion. Okay, in one sense, there should be no discrimination. Yeah, but so, and the second is to the receptivity, as Chandravali mentioned. She mentioned the piety of those ready to receive it. Now, the apparent partiality. So, because we understand devotees give out bhakti impartially, but there is an apparent partiality of devotees in distributing Krishna consciousness. It deals with their level of advancement that they have achieved. We have the Madhyam, we have the Kanishta Adhikari. You follow? The Kanishta, the Madhyam, and the Uttam. And someone would like to read this definition here of a Madhyam Adhikari.
I can read it.
Yeah, please. Thank you.
An intermediate second-class devotee shows love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is friendly to all devotees, and is very merciful to neophytes and ignorant people. The intermediate devotees neglect those who are envious of devotional service. Srimad Bhagavatam 11.2.46.
Okay. So here it's a bit more clear that although I'm just going to let prove it in. Okay, so it is clear that although the Madhyamadikari, they're friendly to all, but in order to give devotion, they make discrimination. Yeah. There is some discrimination, that they make discrimination. Like here in the verse, it says here, they're friendly to all devotees, excuse me, and they're very merciful to neophytes and ignorant people. But they neglect those who are envious. Yep. So they neglect those who are envious. Yeah. So again, is friendly to all devotees. They're very merciful to neophyte and ignorant people. The intermediate devotee neglects those who are envious of devotional service. So those who are envious, they neglect them. Now, they may offer the opportunity through Harinam, etc. And we have Harinam and distribution of Prashadam. Then they may get some mercy there. But as far as giving instruction and giving guidance, devotees generally going to avoid those who are envious. Yeah. So they discriminate among different classes of persons. So they see those who have bhakti, the devotees, they see those who are eligible and receptive, the neophyte and the ignorant. Yeah. So they're seeing those who are unwilling to accept devotional service. These are envious persons. Yeah. So the Madhyamadikari, they choose to give devotion to neophytes and the ignorant. Yeah. So for that reason, some persons receive bhakti and others do not. Yeah. Now, this is a point Ramanath, I think Suddha was, Prabhu, he was asking this question. Although kind of connected here, what is a pure devotee? What is the definition? So some preachers, they're generally intermediate devotees. Sometimes we see neophytes and very advanced devotees also distribute Krishna consciousness. So we've established here that it's those who are madhyam on the practicing, those are madhyamadikaris. They're mainly the preachers. Yeah. But sometimes it's seen that even neophytes or very advanced, the Uttama, also distribute Krishna consciousness. Yeah. So we have the example of Srila Prabhupada and also Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Now, what level of bhakti are they practicing? I think we can conclude that the highest, Uttam Bhakti, but they adopt the discriminating vision of the second class of Vaishnavas. Actually, there was one conversation, there's one room conversation where one Indian man, he's kind of criticizing Prabhupada for calling people rascals, for calling people cheaters and rascals. And he's giving this definition of a saint based on definition of an Uttam Adhikari, that he sees no difference. Yeah. And Prabhupada, he said, yes, that is right, but I'm not so advanced. So, Prabhupada, of course, Prabhupada is very advanced, but the way he answered this man's query or criticism was very, very revealing. Yeah. But what we do see is that when persons like Srila Prabhupada, when he actually preaches, the effect is very powerful, extremely powerful. And he just by his preaching, he can touch he can create so many devotees, yeah, in a quite quick time. And we see that in Prabhupada's presence. Like I was just like we was just discussing here, we were just discussing this morning with Nishinkavacha Prabhu, was just was because yesterday at the temple there was hundreds of devotees there, but there's not many Americans there, all Indian devotees, which is wonderful. So we can see, we was thinking, wouldn't it be wonderful if it was all also the same amount of American-born people there? Yeah. They was appreciating the potency of Prabhupada. Of course, it was a certain history in a certain time, but still Prabhupada's potency of attracting people to devotional service. So there's Prabhupada, he's the highest level of devotion, and he's seeing from the discriminating vision of a madhyam. Yeah. So therefore, but his preaching is very powerful. Yeah. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Maharaj quotes Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who describes the amount of spiritual potency of devotees at different stages of advancement. Yeah. and this is more in line with what Ramanath Sutta was mentioning. Yeah, what different levels can instill, different levels of Vaishnavas can instill different levels of bhakti. And he explains here that someone who's at stage of prema, they can give prema or love to anyone. Yeah. Just like we see in Prabhupada's presence, devotees will often be overcome with great ecstasy. Yeah, great ecstasy of love. And yeah. So devotees at the stage of bhava, they can raise devotees to bhava and non-devotees to the level of ruchi. Okay, so the stage of prema, they can give love to anyone. This is from Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. The stage of bhava, they can give bhava, and they also can give non-devotees ruchi. Yeah. And those who are serious and kind of sadhakas, but not yet kind of liberated, they can give faith. Okay. Any questions here? Any comments? Everyone's still with us? Okay. Now, sometimes we see, actually, Maharaj writes here that there's sometimes the lack of discrimination. It can be, there's question, Bia, did I pronounce it right? Bia?
Oh, Hare Krishna, Bodhi Manhapi, this is Jai Prabhupada. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's Bhakti coming. I didn't change my name.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, so yeah, just a quick question, just about
Please,
how,
yeah.
like, we understand how the devotees discriminate and distribute bhakti, and you mentioned that Krishna himself can also give bhakti. I'm sort of trying to understand how would he do that, but then also how would he discriminate, and also take into account that that jivas have free will, and he would want to honor that. But I do also remember that, as Lord Chaitanya just liberated everyone on the planet basically. So how does that all work? If that makes sense.
Yeah, well, if I've understood the question, in the first part of your question, Krishna, does he have any particular discrimination? Yeah.
Mm.
Again, that mercy which we mentioned is very exceptional, and there would be exceptional circumstances behind that. But generally, it would follow to enhance his lila, to enhance the glory of his compassion. Yeah. Generally, it would be coming from his independent desire for lila and for showing extraordinary mercy. So that would be particular when it's coming from Krishna. And then
Oh, wow.
we'll bring, yeah.
Sorry, is of this from the Shastra?
Sorry, I missed that first part. Yeah.
Is there an example, like a pastime, which illustrates this?
There's there's pastime in the Srimad Bhagavatam. There's who's that? There's one Muni. Kadama Muni? Actually, he's a devotee, but let's just take he's actually rendering or he's meditating upon the Lord to fulfill his own material desire.
Mm.
But the Lord, he's so impressed. Actually, not a full example, but the Lord is so impressed with the bhakti aspect of his tapasya that he appears before him. So in that case, he wasn't a pure devotee, but the Lord himself was very much struck by the devotional aspect of his mixed devotion, so that therefore he appeared before him. But generally, Krishna will only appear before someone at the stage of at least he will make an appearance for devotion for a devotee at the stage of bhava, and only through ardent prema, when one is longing for Krishna, will that devotion control Krishna in order that Krishna manifest to that devotee. But Krishna can manifest himself to even to mix those who are practicing devotion with or practicing mixed devotion. Okay, so, and then we come to, you mentioned Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who's completely not making any discrimination. Now, what we have to understand here that historically, Lord Chaitanya's bestowing love, it is which is mentioned in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, that is specifically in context to Lord Chaitanya himself and manifesting. As we know, he's a combination of Radha and Krishna, and he's manifesting and distributing pure love of God. So you're going to read, especially in Chaitanya Charitamrita and the Chaitanya Bhagavad, where devotees, even non-devotees, everyone, just by seeing Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they become overwhelmed with a great ecstasy of love of God. I'm sure we're familiar with those descriptions. Okay. Now, we may not see that same type of manifestation today. It may happen. Someone, for example, who sees a Rath Yatra, a non-devotee, or takes part in the kirtan, they may become overcome by a shadow of prema, yeah, for a short amount of time. Yeah. But generally, for devotion to manifest, it will manifest through following the path of devotion that Lord Chaitanya's immediate followers have explained. For example, Rupa Goswami in the Nectar of Devotion. It gives us a path to follow from Shraddha all the way to Prema. And there's different steps of devotion, which is what we're describing here, what will be described in Suddha Bhakti Cintamani. So the seed is there, and in one sense, taking up devotion is a manifestation of Lord Chaitanya's mercy. But we're given the seed, and it's up to us to actually cultivate that seed and make progress in devotional service through hearing and chanting. So by the grace of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we have an opportunity. We can take that seed, but in order for that seed to fructify and to develop into the full fruit, namely love of Krishna, we have to do a bit more than just what those who were in immediate association with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had to do. You follow?
Yes. Yes. Thank
Yeah.
you so much. Thank you so much.
Any other comments on that? Ramana Sutta?
Yeah,
Please,
two things. Uttama Adhikari is a very unusual state of consciousness. Not that I know what it is, but from what is explained, the Uttama Adhikari sees everyone else as more advanced. Therefore, they have to come down to the second-class platform and make those discriminations. Otherwise, they can't preach.
Yeah.
They see themselves as very fallen, which this at different times Prabhupada exhibited these Uttama categories, and the devotees would see his genuine humility and would endear us very much to him. There was his, he really felt fallen. But we knew he's not fallen, but that's, that's the Uttama category coming down. So by necessity, they have to come down to a Majjhim level to preach. So that's one thing.
Yeah, they come down to the platform of making some type of discrimination. There's devotees and non-devotees, and therefore they give compassion to the non-devotees. Yes, please continue. Yeah.
And the second thing is here, it says here, the Majjhima intermediate second class is friendly to all devotees and is very merciful to neophytes and ignorant people. Well, that's also very difficult. I sometimes think of my service, there at the reception. Everyone is coming into the temple, they're devotees. So I have to be friendly to everyone, and that's not easy.
Yeah, I mean,
Not,
that's specifically why I put, you see the
yeah,
title of this slide in red at the top is friendly to all devotees, just to bring that point out.
yeah,
Yeah, it's not such, yeah,
friendly
we
to
should take
all
it for
devotees.
granted.
That's
Yeah,
actually, you think it's easy, but actually it's not easy.
yeah,
To really be an advanced Madhyamadikari, you have to work at it.
yeah. In other words, the heart has to be pure, has to be
Yeah,
purified. Then, and then your nature will be to be friendly to all devotees. But it's a good
yeah.
point to note as well. Yeah, thank you, Ramana Sutta. Thank- Um, okay, anybody else? Any questions or comments? Yeah. Okay, let me just finish this section here. So I've got a few minutes left. Now, yeah, again, so just this goes. So say you got someone who lacks this discrimination. Say they're kanishta, what's considered to be kanishta. Sometimes they see devotion where there is none. Maharaj mentions this, and sometimes they condemn advanced devotees. So he mentions that actually everyone's spiritual status, including their own, bewilders them. Now that they awaken devotion in others, and this is in connection to the point that Chandravali was making, has to do more with the piety of the recipients than their own influence. Yeah? So the person they're, say, distributing books to, the reason they may reciprocate is due more to their own specific piety than to the devotion in the person giving them the book, for example. Yeah. So that's why he's bringing out here that sometimes even third class Vaishnavas can instill devotion in the hearts of others. Yeah. So what we're doing here, we're just completing the answer to the first aspect of the third question. So we're just concerning how preachers discriminate when distributing devotion. Okay, how preachers discriminate while distributing devotion. Now, let's see if we can fit this in. Now, the second aspect is the receptivity of the person whom devotees preach. Okay, let's just go through this slide as well. We might go over 1 minute or so, a couple of minutes. Okay. Now, this point here that devotion, so for devotion to awaken in someone, they must hear from devotees. Now, the ability to hear depends on both the opportunity and receptivity. Okay? Now, both of these depend upon the piety of the potential hearer. Okay, so if you can follow, so since devotion is self manifesting, the type of piety here cannot be material. Remember we mentioned in the beginning, bhakti can only come from bhakti. So the type of piety by which one is able to receive bhakti is not material piety. It must be spiritual. Okay? And specifically, it must be piety coming from devotional service. So then the next question, which we may be familiar with, how do non-devotees, okay, those who are not interested in devotion, where can they start? How can they come in contact with devotional service? Well, they do it unknowingly, by unknowing, so agata sukritis, I'm sure most of us might have heard of this term, by unknowing acts of devotion. Yeah. Again, we can, Ramana Sutta, we have plenty experience on reception. Like you have the postman comes and they develop a relationship with the devotees. Devotees say, hello, how are you? Hare Krishna. And sometimes and then they get to know devotees and they become friendly. Or just the temple being in a city and people coming past, or someone driving and they let a Harinam go past. They stop and let the Harinam go past. I'm sure we can think of so many different ways. Yeah, so unknowingly, they have they've executed some devotional service. So another example might be someone's very charitable. Yep. And person comes to their house, they give charity, they're asked to give charity and they give charity. Then a Vaishnava comes and they give a donation. You know? So in one sense it's material piety, but because it's shown to a Vaishnava, that is actually devotion. So the piety by which one becomes receptive to Krishna consciousness, it's called Bhakti Unmukhi Sukriti. So, and then an example Prabhupada gives of this, here we have this picture of Prabodhananda Saraswati Thakur. Now, Prabhupada brings out here that this act. Now, he's this Prabodhananda Saraswati. He wasn't just a Brahmavadi; he was a Mayavadi in a full sense of the term. Yeah, but because he had put out his hand to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to bring him to a different place to sit, that was his unknowing devotional service, which later qualified him to receive the mercy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Yeah. He was the Mayavad sannyasi. Yeah. And here we have this, see this picture here. I think this is in London, actually. This is a Harinam in London many years ago. This is in Prabhupada's time. This is in the early days. You can see expression on their faces. See if I can make this a bit bigger. Oh, I can't. Yeah, you might. So they're all looking, all different. Some, they might have all, what's going through their minds. So many things, but they're getting so much benefit. And okay, unless they attack their Harinam, but they're not. They're just looking. They're very curious. And here we have example of a book distributor giving someone a book. Yeah. So we'll just pause there. So what we just established is this here. Why does bhakti manifest itself? Bhakti is completely causal and it's completely independent. So we're following the logic then that it must be, yep. Java, just raised your hand. Jay, please. Your voice is breaking up, mother. Difficult to hear.
Hare Krishna, please
Hare Krishna.
accept my humble obeisances. My question.
Your voice is breaking up, but
Can
try.
you hear me?
Try. Go on. Keep on
Hare
going.
Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare
Maharaj.
Krishna.
Thank you for the wonderful class. I have
Hare
a
Krishna.
question. I might have missed it, in case I've missed it because I was driving. Can bhakti come from your previous life as well? Do you carry the bhakti? And if you do, for instance, carry it, does it then take time to manifest in this life as well, or how does that work?
Yes, so to answer it as succinctly as possible, yes, bhakti continues from one life to another, from whatever stage we reach in our previous life, then we just take it up from the present life, and we continue on the path. Yeah, we continue on the path of developing our love for Krishna. It may take one lifetime, two lifetimes, or more to develop pure love for Krishna, but it's something which is never lost. Any devotional service or any advancement that we make in one life is never lost, and we pick it up inspired by Krishna in our next life. Okay? Does that help, Mo? Yeah, Hare Krishna. Okay, so let's just
Yes,
pause there
yes.
for today. We looked a little bit of how bhakti manifests, considering its independent nature, as is Krishna. But then we recast the question. Why do it? So it comes from devotees. Then again, another question. It comes from devotees. So why do devotees give devotion to some and not to others? Then we describe the different levels of devotion. And generally, the Madhyamadikari. Sometimes you got the Uttamadikaris come down, and they preach very powerfully. And then the Madhyamadikari make discrimination. Therefore, they preach. And Ramana Sutta nicely brought out again that Prabhupada, he was always Uttama. He displayed that, the level of a Madhyam for the sake of preaching, for serving Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then we also mentioned about on the receiving end, why do some people take to devotion, which is coming from devotees, and some not? This has a lot to do with their own piety. So some, by their own, even if the devotee may be not so qualified, he may inspire someone else who may be practice devotion in their last life. Yeah, so we mentioned that. And next week we're going to speak more about the seed of devotion, what it actually is. What is the actual seed of devotion? Because that's what we've been describing so far. We've received the seed of devotion. So what that actually is and how to cultivate that seed. Okay, so we'll pick this up next week. Okay, thank you, devotees, for joining us. If you have any questions or anything comes up in the meantime, please feel free to ask. You can put in a WhatsApp discussion. Okay, so thank you and look forward to seeing you next week. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare,
Boki Jai.
Hare Ram, Hare Ram,
Prabhupada to
Hari
Krishna.
Bol, Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Hare, Hare Hare.
Vaishnaveभ्यो नमो नमः